morning. Because I'm the first speaker, which is not that easy, and because I am older, I want to start with a few generalities that I think are important for all of us to remember. First of all, to be a woman is a privilege, and it's important we remember it. These screens are terrifying. I don't want to look at them. The other thing is, I have never met a woman who is not strong. But often, women don't show it. Either a brother, a husband, a religion, or sometimes even themselves, they don't show their strength. And then tragedy happens. And miraculously, the woman's strength always comes out. So let's make sure we bring our strength out before the tragedies. Okay, so therefore we should not be victims. Women need to help one another. Women should have a family eventually, but they should also have an identity outside the home. Women often go into entrepreneurship because they like to be their own boss, or because it's easier to be your own boss. You do more. One of the most uplifting movements that has happened in the last few years is microfinancing. And 90% of the people who benefit from microfinancing are women. Why? Because they pay back. So these were my generalities. Now, because each one of us has a story, and each story is inspirational, I will talk to you about my story and the three eras of my business career. The first one I call American Dream. And I was lucky to come to America as a young girl, 22 years old, and in my bag, in my suitcase, I had a few dresses that I had made because I worked for an Italian manufacturer. You see, at the beginning of your life, the first juice, the first door, that is probably the one thing that will stay with you forever and the most important. That's why I love to mentor young women, because there's always that moment where you push your first door. And you don't know maybe that that door will be so important. So when you're very young, it is very important to be extremely alert and to see what door is going to be my door. My door was meeting this Italian man who had a factory. He had a printing plant. And he asked me to come as an intern to watch what he did. So I watched everything about printing. He used to print on fabric, how he bought art and how he transferred it into fabric, and all the different techniques about coloring and all of that. Then he had another factory where he made the jersey fabric, which, you know, for T-shirts, which now seems so obvious, but at the time it wasn't. It was a new thing. He taught me about how to mix the fibers. He told me how to create a fabric that felt soft and that could breathe. And I was learning without, I didn't think I was learning, but I was learning. I then went to America to visit my boyfriend that I had met at university, and he was doing an internship in a bank in New York. And in New York, I discovered a whole new fashion that I didn't know about. I met young designers like Halston and Giorgio Sant'Angelo. And when they asked me to model for them when I was a young girl. And then when I went back to Italy, back to work with this man, I thought maybe there's something in these factories that I could do, make a few samples, and sell them in America, which is what I did. I got married, got pregnant. Actually, it was reversed. I got pregnant, I got married. But precisely because of that, I really had the need to show that I could be independent, that it wasn't my husband, it wasn't my father who was going to provide for me. So I came to America with a lot of hope and this suitcase. And I started to show around, and everybody thought I was crazy. Who is this girl? She's pregnant, she shows this. Nobody understood these little dresses that, that look like nothing. And then I went to see Diane Vreeland, and she was the editor-in-chief of American Vogue. And it was terribly intimidating. They put me in her office, and they took a rack, and I unpacked, and I put my stupid little dresses in there. And then all of a sudden, this woman walks in with black hair, a huge cigarette holder, red nails. And the first thing she did is she pushed my chin up, and she said, "Chin up, up." I said, "Oh, it's not starting well at all." But actually, she's really the one. She kept on saying, "This is wonderful. This is so extraordinary, so original." And then before I knew, I was out of the office, on the floor, packing back. And her assistant said, "I think she liked it, so I think she'll probably put them in a magazine." I said, "Well, what do I do next?" And she said, "Well, you should maybe you take a room in a hotel. The Gotham Hotel is where all the California people show their lines, so there'll be traffic. You should list yourself in the fashion calendar and make a small announcement in Women's Wear Daily." So I looked at her and I said, "Can I use your desk?" And she said yes, and I sat on her desk, I made the 3 appointments, and I got going. So that's how it happened. I mean, I was lucky because I had the right product at the right time, and I became very, very rapidly successful. But it isn't easy. It isn't easy then. It isn't easy after. It is never easy. I mean, I went like, I still feel like Willy Loman, schlepping around and selling the dresses and getting up in the morning. And I was so successful so young. I used to be so arrogant. I thought I would retire by the time I was 30. And look at me today. I mean, so I had a very big success. I mean, I can't go. I only have 7 minutes left, so I have to get going. But I have a book, The Woman I Wanted to Be, which you could read, and where I really opened myself up. So I was so honest, because I think it's important to be honest. Honesty is the most important thing, because if you are really honest, then at least you're true to yourself. And if you're true to yourself, you're true to your mistakes. The worst is to make mistakes because you thought somebody wanted you to do something, which is why to be an entrepreneur is not easy, but it's a good way, because at least you're in control. You're in control of what you do, you're in control of your mistake, and therefore you could stand by your mistake. So American Dream, I ended up selling the company, and I thought I was finished. I thought I was finished with the fashion business. I followed the love story, and I went live in Paris. My children were in boarding school. And then 5 years later, I came back. And I came back to America, and I realized that my business, my brand, my work was so much a part of my entity. It was so much part of my identity. And having lost it was really tough. As a matter of fact, at that time, I got a tongue cancer. And I think that I got cancer in my tongue because I couldn't express myself. Anyway, it all went well. That's 20 years ago, and I still am here. So then what I realized, there is when I really ate a humble pie. I was somebody who had been or has been, and I tried to deal with people who had my name, and everybody wanted me out, and they said, she doesn't know, she was successful once. And those were really, really difficult years. But gradually, I got my name back, and I either bought it back or got it back. And then I realized that young women, hip girls, were buying the old dresses in vintage shops. And that's when I started again. And that was about 15 years ago. I started again with a wrap dress. And even though I was 50, I still thought I was a young girl. I still thought I was, I was a startup all over again. And I started with a bunch of girls, and we built a company very organically, and I was very arrogant about only hiring women. As a matter of fact, I used to say, in my company, men either drive or clean. I remember when I said that to Warren Buffett, he loved it. Anyway, so that was the period called Comeback Kid. It was really a lot of fun. It was really a lot of fun. So about 2 years ago, I realized that, you see, the thing is that no matter at what stage you are in your life, you always have challenges. Challenges change. I say life is a journey and the landscape change. People come in, people go out. The same thing with challenges. And also another thing you should know is that you look at the woman across the room and you think, oh, she's so successful, she's so together, she knows it all. Well, you know what? It's not necessarily true. And for her, you are the woman across the room. So I think it's really important that we always remember that we always have challenges, that the challenges change, and the most important thing is to be true to who you are and as close to what you want as possible. It is really so important. So I had American Dream, I had Comeback Kid, and I have now started the new era, which is about legacy, which is when you get older and the good thing about aging is you have a past, right? So if you like your past and if you have something to show for your past, then it's good, which also means don't waste any time because your present is building your past. So I looked at my past, and I did a big exhibition last year in Los Angeles, and it was all about the wrap dress, and it was at LACMA, and it was the journey of the dress. And that dress, even though it had paid for all my bills, it paid for my children's education, it paid for my houses, I always took it for granted. And sometimes I even despised it when people always associated my name with the wrap dress. But last year when I decided to do the exhibition, for the first time ever, not only it was great because hundreds of people saw it, but it was amazing for me because I saw it all, and I saw that that one little dress had dealt with so many generations. When I started, I was 25, which means my mother was only 47, so I dressed her. I dressed even older than that. Then it was my daughter generation, and now my granddaughter generation. So I realized that so much of not only what that dress had done to me, but what it had done to other women. And I felt very blessed and very lucky. So that's what my company is about. We celebrate freedom, we empower women, and we sell confidence. So that's it. So meanwhile, since we all have to help one another, in case you want to buy a little confidence, you can go on the people in the audience, you can go on my website, dvf.com, and if you type lead on 20 for 1 week, you'll have 20% discount. Thank you.